I am so delighted to welcome back today the founder of Empowered Expat Woman, best-selling author, certified life coach, and podcast host. So I am extremely grateful you have made time for us here today, Camilla, despite all the events you're invited to around the launch of this most remarkable book you have just released. I mean, so much wisdom. I only received it 2 days ago, so I have not read the whole thing, though I probably could have because I got really enthralled in it. It's short chapters, it's topics which totally resonate and which you speak about with a lot of wisdom, humility, and directness. I'm really enjoying it very much and thinking, why did we not have books like that when I started out 20 years ago? So much to commend you for. But let's start with you introducing yourself, Camilla, in your own words, where you're from, where you live, what you do, and basically what has taken you to this mission.
Right. Okay. So many questions and so much to say. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me back. I was on the podcast already, I think it was probably 2 years ago, and I'm really excited to be back. And also with lots and lots of news, like you already insinuated. So, right, let me just quickly tell you a little bit about me. My name is Camilla Quintana. I was born and raised in Vienna, Austria, into a very multicultural, globally minded family. So for me, it was almost like in my DNA to say, I want to live abroad. I want to, go out into the big wide world. And so I did. And ever since, well, at 16, I did a semester abroad. And then at 18, I basically took off and studied here and there and worked and so forth. Then I met my Spanish husband. He's also an expat, so we have been traveling for his career ever since we got married. And now 3 kids later, here we are in Bilbao in the north of Spain. And I've been running my business, The Empowered Expat Woman, for 6 years now. It's really grown into what it is today, one of the top platforms for support for expat women. And what I provide is coaching, workshops, seminars, lots of content through my blog, my podcast, and now through my book.
Well done. I mean, so many people. I mean, I know that because I actually interview authors for another organization. I mean, only 3% actually make it over.
Yeah.
So well done, you.
I read statistics like that also. There are so many out there. How many people would like to write a book but don't? How many people start writing a book but never finish? Right. And how many people finish writing their book but then never get it published because they're held back by insecurities maybe?
Exactly.
Or the time has passed and it's not, current anymore, whatever reason.
But you did it. So why the book? Why did you write this book?
Well, I've been running my podcast, The Empowered Expat Woman. When I find a name that works, I just stick to it and everything
is... Of course. Branding is everything. Yes.
I know. So, and I had so much content from all of these episodes because I treated my solo episodes, at least. Julie was on as well.
That's true.
And I treated them as a mini masterclass. So it's very content dense. And Julie already mentioned, I think this is my style, is as a busy mom of 3 who's running her own business solo, I'm always short on time, or I always feel I'm short on time, right? So my biggest pet peeve is when I have the feeling that people are wasting my time because they ramble on, they don't get to the point. Maybe it's also the Austrian in me.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want want it to be compact. And that's exactly what I did with the book. I had the idea of compiling all the content from the podcast and quickly the idea of calling it an A to Z guide. So I started writing out the chapters. Some letters were really difficult, like Q and Y, but I did it. I found something anyway. And I just started writing this guide that, as you can see, is not a thick guide because of its independent chapter structure. It's really something that you can open up and you could start with G and then go to S and then
that's exactly what I did. So when I received it, was it yesterday or the day before? And sort of each day it's been on my dining table. I just left it there because first of all, it's a very beautiful looking book. And I just opened it randomly. I'm very much into intuition. And each time I was a bit like, wow, yeah, she really gets it. This is really, I remember that. This is how I felt.
That was the most important thing to me, was really to convey or to pick up everyone where they were and just be able to relate to different readers. Some of them are absolutely enjoying their expat adventure. Others are at rock bottom. That's also a chapter in my book, chapter R, and just ready to throw in the towel.
And we all go
others
amongst all of
are
those
in
the whole
between.
time, right? All of
Exactly. And I
us.
wanted everyone to feel seen and acknowledged in their experience and provide, tips and tools to
Very
make
practical,
the
super
situation
practical
better.
tips.
So
I mean, really,
practical.
I was a bit like, yeah, that's exactly it. But I don't know if even after all these, 20 odd years of expat, I would have been able to make it that concise. So well done for that. Now, today, of course, this is Fabulous After 50. So we're talking about being an empowered expat woman over 50. And I must admit, as I was preparing for this, they were just thinking about it, let's say, I was realizing that I haven't actually lived the expat life since well, I mean, I am technically, because I am in Holland, so I'm still an expat here, but not the moving very, very regularly like I used to. And I do realize that everything back then was around the family and the children. Maybe I actually resented it that always each time, the first 6 months was settling the family, the routines, where's the doctor, how does this work, where's the bank account? The husband just went off, in my case then, and did his own stuff. The kids went to school and did their own stuff. And then in January, I would always have "Oh, what about me?" But I'm thinking, a lot of my friends were via school. A lot of my routine was via school. And I can imagine being an expat after 50. So either with children who've also left home, which also brings its own feeling of disconnect, and they've just flown the nest, but they might be very far, depending, where you're expatriated. So there's an awful lot of additional things for 50 plus. Of course, then you don't have all the children and the time problems, etc. Is that what you were taking into account? I mean, in this book?
Also, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. A lot of my clients are actually in the situation where they find themselves as empty nesters or almost empty nesters, where they're really starting to plan ahead. Oh, what will my life be like? I mean, every time there is a new opportunity, which clearly it is, because now you get to take care of yourself and live around your own schedule maybe. But then that also comes with so many challenges, because now what will you do concretely? There are these little things that you look forward to, like being more independent, but then what will this actually look like in your day-to-day life?
It's pretty confrontational, really. Right.
Yes.
It is a challenge. I was also thinking, before we get into, well, what can one then do? And okay, it's for most it's a bit of a luxury, sounds horrible, but we don't always have to earn that much, right? I mean, we often do want to have our own money, stand on our own 2 feet. If we're talking about couples going together and the partners then being the one accompanying, right? The trailing spouse. Always hated the term of trailing spouse.
Yeah.
But so usually money is less of an issue, but that doesn't mean that you then just sit at home, painting your nails by the pool every day. I mean, I think most of us would go absolutely insane. But also, I mean, I was just literally thinking arriving. Okay, so you arrive, you unpack, spouse, whichever, gender he or she is, goes off to do whatever they've been paid to come here to do. Then what? It's been awfully lonely.
It is, yeah. And I think this was my experience also. When you don't really have a sense of direction and something that gives you meaning, and also the ability to connect on a real level, not just superficially, hi, how are you? It makes you feel very disempowered and inadequate even. And that is such a horrible feeling for me, at least. So I think so important for all human beings, but then for expats who just don't have that, let me also call it luxury, of being in their made nest. Like people who've never moved, they have their friends of all times and their family nearby, their children most probably nearby, maybe even parents still. Everything is basically familiar. And as an expat woman, and regardless of whether you lived somewhere for a very long time or a very short time, depending on what age maybe you moved, it doesn't mean that you will ever be able to build that kind of profound connection with people then maybe
And
others.
everything depends on you, right? Because otherwise, let's
Yeah,
say you're born in the village, you know, your uncle, your aunt, you're not having to do anything. They are there. They are already, that fabric of society is around you when you're born. Whereas each time we arrive, it's entirely up to us.
yeah, it
There's
is.
nothing. There's nothing
Yeah,
else.
everything is up to us. I mean,
Everything is
for
up
the
to
good
us.
and the bad, right? We get to forge our own way and live a little bit by our own rules. But then again, that comes with that
Yeah.
responsibility. So what
Yeah.
is my way? What are my rules?
Can be, you know, depending on your personality or whatsoever, it can be very daunting because everything is new and we don't really like new. You know, we like the adventure of new. And of course, as chronic expats, let's say, we very much get friends with the new, but otherwise it still takes us out of our comfort zone each time. You know, even
Yeah,
silly things like I remember for me, it was like turning up at the gym and you know, not knowing exactly how it works. You know, it's a very silly little thing, but still, you know, everybody else knows what they're doing and they've got their lockers and they've got their keys and you have to find it out. So loneliness. Okay, so I hear you talking about loneliness as a challenge. And we're talking about, you know, the empowered expat woman after 50. So it's about how can we tackle that loneliness? And as you were saying as well, you know, when you were talking about the challenges that we often have to give a meaning to our life, right? I mean, I went through a few of those crises myself, even with the children out there. Like, you know, this is great, and I love the adventure, and I love the variety, and I love the challenge of discovering a new culture. And I lived in Black Africa a lot, so you know, Cameroon, Uganda, Senegal were issues, you know, with normal basic stuff like electricity, water, etc. I loved that challenge, but at the same time, there would always be a moment when I'm a bit like, okay, but what am I creating? You know, my mum would say, oh, but you're creating a beautiful family. And I'm thinking, okay, no, that's just organic, right? That just
yeah.
happens. That's not
That
what
is
I'm
that
doing.
is amazing. It really is. And hopefully you will get to enjoy your family and your grandchildren and so forth. But maybe, right, they go off and live their lives and
Yeah,
it's just not enough, I think. You need something that's just your own, that
yeah,
you don't depend on someone else to be there, to call you, to
exactly.
come over, right? So I think that is so important. I always talk about the importance of having a long-term vision, that the way to get there can fluctuate, right?
Mm,
Sometimes in some countries, like you said, maybe you don't even have a work permit and you are
yeah,
unable to work.
exactly.
Or in other countries, you might not speak the language at all, and it's very difficult to penetrate the local community. But in other countries, you might have this opportunity and that opportunity. So the way that you will bring that long-term vision to life may vary, but it's important to have something kind of like a
Yeah,
thread that you can hold on to, something that, you know, some people like to call it the legacy they want to leave
yes.
behind, the impact they want to make, or their long-term vision, or maybe their purpose, whatever term resonates with you and brings some kind of idea to mind. And I think when you have that, I also talk a lot about the heart project, just something that really excites you, that makes you get out of bed in the morning and
Right.
like to get out of bed in the morning because you know what you're doing is important. And if you're not showing up, things will not work out the same, right? That is
I
what
love that, the heart
to
project, because
be
it's
needed.
your heart, right? So nobody can take it away from you. It's not
Yeah.
as if, you know, you set something up and then, you know, your spouse gets the next calling and up, you have to leave everything behind and move on. Your heart project, just like your own heart, you
And
take,
nowadays, with the internet, I mean, we are
yeah,
so lucky because we can continue things, certain things, even in a different country, even in a new assignment. So we have many possibilities there. And there are also many people who can help us out to take something online, global.
exactly. I mean, that is fantastic. And that when I, you know, compare it to when I started off, so what, about 30 years ago now, of course, that wasn't there. Now you have the world at your fingertips. You can do all the courses or even, you know, to come back to the water business that I've joined, it's also something that I can do wherever I want, whenever I want, all over the globe. It's all online. And so that
Yeah.
does give that feeling, indeed, what you said of red thread, because I remember that's something that I struggled with. I was always fortunate that even in countries where I wasn't supposed to work, I always managed to find something that I could do where I was paid, but part-time. So it was all very eclectic. And when I got back to well, first Berlin and then to Holland, you know, the CV was, wow, fascinating, all these languages and cultures and all of that. But you don't get into a managerial job with that sort of thing. And I was feeling rather frustrated with this, what I used to call the firework effect. You know, each time I'd arrive, and when my time had come and the family was settled, then I'd have a burst of ideas and do one and then another and then and this. But, you know, you feel a bit scattered. You feel a little bit like,
Yeah.
okay, but I'm more than just a whole list of various passions or projects
Yeah.
that I've followed.
Actually, now that you mentioned that, I think it is so important to learn to be very focused on what truly matters, because especially
Yeah.
as women and especially as expat women,
Yeah.
we are such great multitaskers, right? We
Yeah.
do so many things at the same time. And I don't know about you, but I have this inner voice that always tells me, you can do this too. You can
Yes.
say yes. Just say yes. You'll figure
That's
it out.
exactly what they say. If you want to have anything done, ask a busy woman. Because we're in
That's
that
right.
mindset of
But then
yes,
don't you think
yes.
that it decreases your
Of course it
focused
does.
attention
It
on a
does.
thing?
Yeah.
And it leads to that scatteredness and of sometimes I notice at least not retaining what I'm doing, what I'm reading
Yeah.
maybe, or what I'm learning, right? So I think learning to focus on what's really important, and that can start even if you haven't been used to that, because maybe you haven't worked in an office job where that's more of the normal way
Yeah.
of being. Blocking time in your calendar and sitting down every day for 2 hours to work on, let me call it your heart project. Maybe that's writing a book, because we know that a lot of people
That's
actually
true.
want to write books. And let me tell you from my own experience, I always say this book could have not been written by anyone else but me. Why? Because nobody else is like me, just like
Yes.
nobody else is like you. So whenever we feel that imposter syndrome come up and telling us, well, I might not be good enough and I might not do a good enough job at writing this book, there is no one who could write it like you. There is no comparison, right? It's
Yes.
just in your hands to get started and start writing. Or maybe it's something else. Maybe you want to start a business or a brand or something creative. There's so
Yeah.
much you can do creatively. And also a wonderful tool, and we mentioned, right, overcoming loneliness and finding meaning. Such a wonderful tool is to do something that helps others.
Yes.
You know, there's all this actually biochemical reaction going on,
Yes.
where you release serotonin and oxytocin and dopamine, because you're doing something that's needed
Yes.
and exciting, and
You feel a value, right? You feel that, and especially in this age. I mean, I always see that from 50s onwards, let's say, when things have quietened down at home, etc., they are a period of contribution. It's something that we want to do. You know, we've got this wisdom, we've got this accumulated experience, good, bad, just like what you're doing, right? You're taking all that you've experienced. Then you thought, you know, I want to be there for other women like me. You know, you did your studies, you have your podcast, and now you have a whole business which is growing and growing and growing around you, using the expat experience to make your mission, to have your heart project. I mean, I dare say there will be many more because you're not 50 yet, but I mean, it is that idea of looking at, like what you said, you know, what is important to me?
What is important? Exactly. What can I do to feel important? That's also really
Yeah.
good. And to feel needed, which is so often, again, going back to the empty nester and someone even who may not be very well embedded yet in their local environment, right? That is such an important feeling and such an important question to ask. So,
Right. No, it does all start with us. And I think also, I mean, women in general have a tendency to put others first. Expat women even more so, because we have no choice, right? We arrive there, we have to recreate everything.
we're always the ones that have to adapt to someone else's
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
else's
Yeah.
culture.
And
it's
there's just so much to do, you know, whether you're a family of I've also got three, or whether you're alone, you still need to find a house, set up a house, find how the electricity works, where's the gym, where's the doctor, where's the dentist, where do I do my shopping, how does the culture work here, what is, you know, acceptable, what is not. You have to do all of that, but it's not so much from your own choice. It is a job.
That's so important what you just said, because there is a difference between being busy and being busy with a purpose, let me call it.
Purposefully busy,
Something, right? Something that you're actually doing for yourself, but maybe also for others, but it's your thing, that heart project that we mentioned, right?
So that would definitely be a tip you give, right? To
Yes,
okay,
don't
so we're talking about,
confuse the two.
yeah.
Right? Don't confuse being busy to doing something that really matters in the long run that can work towards that long-term vision. And I think blocking 2 hours each day in your calendar, even if you're not quite sure what you're going to do, if you do want to write a book, let's just stick to that example. I think 50 plus, you have so much life experience. If you are an expat, oh my goodness, how many places and cultures and people have you met and have you seen? There is something that each and every one of us has an expertise on, or simply a unique perspective on,
or a story, right? Something that somebody
right?
can be inspired by.
A cookbook, whatever it is. And one great tip that I learned and I applied is to sit down every day to write, let me say, either one page or sit down every day for half an hour, even if you don't feel inspired, but just keep doing it. And if it's not writing a book, still sit down for that time a day and work on your own goals, on your own mission. You will see the clarity and the inspiration will come.
Exactly. And the good thing is if people are not used to doing that because they haven't had much time to think about, well, what do I actually want in this very hectic expat life? Is there are coaches, right? There are coaches online, so there's really no reason to not get down into those questions because everything is available. And there's also lots of, I know we had sort of expat partner support, where we could take coaching, where we could take a study or whatsoever. So there's usually a lot of stuff there. And it's up to us, right, to ask for it, and up to us to ask ourselves those questions, because nobody else is going to do it for us. But okay, so if we summarize then, so what 3 tips, or I'm just saying 3 like this, would you have for 50 plus to feel empowered expat women?
Right. So the first tip is really to work on your long-term vision, let me call it. Something that lights you up, that's just yours and cannot be taken away by your kids leaving the home or maybe your husband not being around, not even by a change of destination. I understand that there are some projects that you won't be able to continue just like that. But let me say that you work in a charity, right? In a local charity, and then you're moving away. Well, maybe your long-term vision is that you want to support and maybe a specific group of people. Maybe you want to support children or refugees or something, right? You can take that with you and do the same thing somewhere else in a different manner.
Yeah, and you've learned, right? You've grown through the experience you've had there. You can do, I'm thinking aloud, you can get funds for them or whatsoever. You can still continue it, even if you're not at the same location.
I think when we want to, we can get very, very creative about how this could look, right? So that is number one. Really try and find this heart project of yours, this long-term vision.
The idea. Heart project just sounds so good.
I know, right? And it feels like that. It feels like, when I was, well, actually everything I do in my work, it's just something I feel like I need to do. And that is such a great feeling. It really, really is. So I wish that on everyone. If you're having a hard time, well, first of all, may I refer to my book, because I actually talk about this in chapter C, which is clarify your goals, and chapter V, which is vision, long-term vision. And there's also a fillable workbook that you can download free of charge with the book. So there are lots of exercises that you could take if you're just not very clear. But like I said, even if you aren't, block out time in your calendar, sit down. Also think about a question I really like is not only what do I want to do, but also who could help me, right? Who could I team up with? Who could I collaborate with? Who could connect me with someone? To me, that's like very creative thing.
And that takes away the loneliness as well. So that's also, you're then connected to someone, whether they're in the same town or country or not. That's also the advantage of the internet, right?
Yes. And then also when you commit to something, commit to it properly, either by, blocking out that time that you will dedicate each day or so and so many times a week. I think a lot of times we leave things half done and then we say to ourselves, well, it didn't work out, but we actually weren't committed. We weren't fully committed to it. So, that focus element that we mentioned before, that commitment, I also like thinking big and setting big goals for yourself. What I notice, yes, it is scary. Yes, it's something we're not used to because this might also be a, cultural thing. We're usually advised to set very safe goals so that we're not disappointed. right? To
Yes,
stay small and humble and,
exactly. Especially
not take
girls.
on
Girls
too
don't
much.
speak up.
Exactly. My experience is when you set a really high goal for yourself, you become so resourceful and so creative in achieving that big goal that even if you fail to actually meet that huge goal, you will still get so much further than if you had set a small and safe goal.
Exactly.
It doesn't even
Exactly.
motivate you enough to start
Yeah.
working towards it, right? It's not exciting enough. Sometimes when we feel like we cannot get the motivation and the excitement to work towards something, it might be because the goal is too small and too
Yes. It doesn't enthuse us, right?
exactly. And people look for the error within themselves and what am I not,
Yeah.
doing, or I'm just not cut out for this. No, maybe you're just really selling yourself short and you
That's
could
what you said. It also starts with us, right? With putting away. I loved what you said about unique. We can all say, oh, well, nobody's waiting for my books or coaching course or whatever. There's so much out there, etc. But it's not true. No one does it like you do it. And no one's
yeah,
story will be the same as you. And that means that there will be, by definition, people who will relate to you more than to someone else, because you will have spoken to something that maybe they think nobody else has. What I admire for you so much is that you really made it happen, right? So, okay, you had your podcast started, and then you came up with the idea of, wow, this is an awful lot of information. I keep saying I want to do that about this podcast. I'm 106 episodes or something like that. I'm
amazing.
sitting on so much richness. And I'm also thinking, well, do something with it. If your mission is to help people be heard, do more with it. So, okay, the YouTube channel was step 2, but still, to actually get a book out like this, and I've seen you've been on launches and all of that. I mean, you've really embraced it. We need to do more of that as women. It doesn't mean we're arrogant. It doesn't mean we're pushy or whatsoever. We're actually shining our light to our
Yeah,
fullest potential. And that's what at 50 plus, I think everybody has got this heart mission in them. Everybody has something which is uniquely theirs, and which in a way I would even say that we owe it to ourselves to give it
totally.
out, and we owe it to the rest of the world as well. We're here for a reason.
I had two thoughts now while you were speaking. One is that there is a chapter which is chapter Q. Oh my God, was it hard to come up
So
with a Q?
what's that? What's Q then?
It's
Questions?
queen energy.
Oh, Queen
And I
Energy.
actually
Yes.
derived it from a term that I heard, and I'm not sure, maybe you told it to me, the queenager. Did you
Oh,
hear
no,
that?
no, no. Oh, I like
So
that. The
the queenager is
Queenager.
the new, not the new generation, as in the generation of, let's say, 50 plus, right, that are still very much, living life. They have the means to live life more than the 20. It's actually, I think, a marketing term because the 50
Okay.
plus group of women, especially, are a very popular marketing group now because they still have a lot of life ahead. They have the means to
Yeah.
enjoy life and to buy stuff. I think I actually derived it from that. And what I say is that a little bit of audacity doesn't hurt anyone, right? I
No,
think we need to
no. And especially if it's audacity with playfulness, with a smile. It's not blur in
course,
your
it's not
face.
arrogant.
No,
It's
it's not.
it's just a feeling really good within yourself, within your
Right.
own mind and body. And to me, to bring this all back together, to me, the way to feel really, really, really great inside of your own mind and body is by doing something that you know is important, that has meaning, that you are doing in your way that feels authentic and aligned to you. So to me, that is something that will bring you into this queen energy that we all need. And hey, until we get there, a little bit of fake it until you make it is all right. So just
Yeah,
practice for yourself, even at home, just telling yourself really uplifting things that a queen would tell herself.
exactly.
Just like
I
think of
remember somebody
that.
once said to me, look at your cat, because cats just,
Oh, right.
behave as if they're, it's just saying, look at your cat. Look at that sort of, slightly above it all, sweet, but slightly disdainful. Just get into that sort of
Yeah. And you
power
can practice
feeling.
for yourself. You don't even have to do that, with others. But as you
Right.
get comfortable with that role and that embodiment of the queen, you can then also
shine. We can
transmit it and
shine.
shine it
We
outward.
shine and rule our kingdom with lots of love and soulful alignment. Camilla, thank you very, very much. Just before we finish off, can you please, for those who are listening, for example, while they're traveling, where can people get hold of the book? Remind us the title and where we can get hold of it.
Right. So the title is The Empowered Expat Woman, Your A to Z Guide to Thriving Wherever You Are. You can get it on Amazon in a hardcover, paperback, or ebook. You can get it on Barnes & Noble's, Apple Books, Ingram Sparks. There are a whole lot of book platforms I didn't even know about. Oh, hopefully very soon it will be on Audible. That's my big dream now, my next project.
Yeah. Nice. It's there. It's an amazing guide, which I wish on everyone. I'm certainly going to blog about it, and I'm certainly going to share the word. So thank you for being with us, Camilla.
Thank you.
And I wish us all to allow ourselves that space to think about what is my heart project, and then just get to it, because it's wonderfully empowering. And this is all about being wonderfully empowered, fabulous after 50s expats. Thank you, Camilla. All the best to all of you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.